Minister, the central purpose of this bill is to allow the NTA to use their expertise to expand our regional cities' transport services and bring them up to a more uniform standard. And the Green Party supports the streamlining of services, but the purpose of streamlining needs to be to actually make things more efficient. And in our view, the government seems to be doing everything in its power to counter any such efficiency effects. I questioned Minister Darragh O'Brien about this particular bill in February, and I was told that the bill was on the priority publication list for the spring session. Then it was moved to the priority publication list for the summer legislative programme, and the bill was only published in mid-May. So I'm confused, Minister, as to why this was the case, particularly because in the Joint Oireachtas Committee that I sit on, we made a decision to waive pre-legislative scrutiny for this particular piece of legislation in October of last year. So that was a decision by TDs, opposition and government on the Joint Oireachtas Committee to move this bill along, support it being done as quickly as possible in order to support the rollout of the Cork BusConnects as quickly as possible. And when you actually look at the bill that's published now versus the draft that was published, that was available last year, seems to have only 13 words have changed in that interim period of time. So the government talks very extensively about the 24.3 billion that has been allocated to public transport as part of the National Development Plan, and we've been told that this will result in the delivery of, for example, Metrolink by 2035. But I'd like to know how the government expects the public to believe that they can deliver on promises like that when simply altering two sections of this bill to help the NTA run the regional bus services within Cork, that's taken almost a year to do. Managing existing public transport services is probably the least ambitious part of the list of public transport plans. And if this is any indication of how this government is going to proceed, then things are looking pretty bleak. And I'd like to highlight that during our time in government, the Green Party was able to introduce or enhance 180 different bus routes for rural areas in just 4 years. At one stage, there was a new or enhanced bus route being launched every single week. But that progress has now been stalled. The planned routes are being left unfunded, and promises are being broken to communities all over this country. But the bill we're discussing today, its most immediate impact will be felt in your own city of Cork in terms of the delivery of BusConnects. And Minister O'Brien said in April of this year that he was acutely aware of public transport concerns in Cork. And as you know, Minister, from national newspaper headlines earlier this year, there were nearly 3,000 complaints made about Cork bus services in the year prior to that particular statement. And yet, somehow it took a full month for the final approval of this legislation to be provided, and that had been sitting on Minister O'Brien's desk since August. 10% of the complaints made in terms of bus services across Cork were on one particular route, the route that serves University College Cork, MTU and Cork University Hospital. And that means that students, that doctors, that nurses, that patients, that family members, all of those have been impacted by this inaction, by the slowness of the government's delivery of this particular piece of legislation. And I don't think that's acceptable. I'm sure, Minister, as a TD for that area, you don't think it's acceptable either. But I think the people deserve an answer about why this particular legislation that is essential before any of that work on Cork BusConnects can actually take place, why this piece of legislation has taken so long. While I welcome the fact that the bill has finally been published, that question of why so much time has been lost is really important. The government's Project Ireland 2040 strategy, that was published in 2018, and it set out that the Cork BusConnects project would be completed by 2027. The phased implementation of the different bus routes were meant to begin by 2023, so we're now 3 years behind that particular schedule. In February of this year, the NTA said they hope to submit the first of 3 packages of strategic transport corridor in Cork, the corridor based in the north of the city, by the end of Q2 if this bill was enacted. So because of the delay in enacting this particular piece of legislation, there's now less than 1 month left if that particular timeline is going to be made. And it's not going to be made. We all know that. And the failure to meet those particular targets, it doesn't just impact the delivery of that first package, the corridor in the north of the city. It will have a knock-on impact on the implementation of the other two based in the south of Cork. And the NTA time frame has these packages placed a further 6 months after the submission of the first. And I've discussed this matter with my Green Party colleague, Councillor Oliver Moran. He's told me that local representatives, they simply aren't willing to go out and speak to the public in Cork about the timelines that the NTA are giving them, because they no longer have confidence in those timelines. They just say they don't trust the NTA anymore to deliver on schedule. Those local reps have been burnt too many times. They've gone out with a timeline and it's been completely undermined by the lack of action. And there's a lack of clarity on the funding for BusConnects Cork, and that's creating a sense that the whole project is in stasis, despite the fact that there's palpable demand for these services among commuters, and there is backing for these services among local representatives as well. So, Minister, I urge that your government stop adding to those delays in this area and actually allow the necessary work to be undertaken to allow for the delivery of BusConnects. Allow the people who are waiting for these services, those students, those nurses, those doctors, patients, people from all walks of life who are relying on public transport, allow them to actually see at least the potential, at least a horizon within which a better bus service will be delivered across Cork. Very significant political commitments have been made, timelines have been set out. It's essential that those timelines are delivered on. Thank you.